The diner's fluorescent lights hummed their tired song as Clara wiped down the last booth, her movements precise and rehearsed. 3 years she'd been invisible here exactly as she'd planned. The graveyard shift at Rosie's all night was perfect for someone who needed to disappear. Few customers, fewer questions, and the kind of exhaustion that kept nightmares at bay. She'd left everything behind in Portland. The wedding that never happened. The fiancé who'd chosen her sister. The family who'd asked her to understand. Now she was just Clara, the waitress in a town where nobody knew her story. And that was exactly how she wanted it. The bell above the door chimed at 2:47 a.m. Clara looked up and felt something shift in her chest, not attraction exactly, but recognition of something dangerous. The man who entered moved like water, fluid and deliberate, wearing a black coat to fine for this part of town. But it was the woman beside him who captured Clara's attention. She was elderly, elegant, with silver hair swept into a chignon and eyes that held centuries of stories. She wore deep burgundy velvet despite the summer heat, and her hands moved in quick, graceful gestures. The man, her son, Clara assumed, was scanning the diner with an intensity that made the space feel smaller. His eyes were storm gray, his features carved from some Renaissance painting, beautiful in a way that made Clara want to look away. "Just the two of you?" Clara asked, grabbing menus. The man's gaze locked onto her. "Yes." His voice was low, controlled, with an accent she couldn't quite place. "Eastern European, maybe, but softened by time." Clara led them to a corner booth, the one with a view of both exits. She noticed the man checking and set down the menus. The older woman's hands began moving again, signing with fluid precision. Clara's own hands responded before her brain caught up. "Welcome. Can I get you something to drink?" The woman's face transformed. Her smile was radiant, erasing decades. She signed back rapidly, and Clara caught most of it. Gratitude, surprise, delight at being understood. The man had gone completely still. When Clara glanced at him, something flickered across his face: surprise, certainly, but also a vulnerability that vanished as quickly as it appeared. "You know sign language," he said. It wasn't quite a question. "My brother was deaf." Clara kept her voice neutral. Past tense. Another thing she didn't talk about. "I'm a little rusty, but I can manage." The woman signed again, and Clara felt herself smile despite the ache in her chest. "Your brother taught you well. So few people make the effort. He was worth the effort." Clara signed back. "My mother says you have kind eyes." The man translated, though Clara had understood perfectly. His voice had gone softer. She asked if we might order tea. Earl Grey for her, black coffee for me. Of course. Clara wrote it down, buying herself a moment to process. Something about this man made her nervous in a way that had nothing to do with fear. He was too controlled, too watchful, like he was constantly calculating distances and exits. "Have you decided on food?" The mother signed. "Just tea for me. My son doesn't eat much." "She's already eaten," the man said smoothly. "I'm not hungry." Clara nodded and headed for the kitchen, her hands trembling slightly as she poured coffee and set water to boil. Through the order window, she watched them. The man sat with his back to the wall, his coat still on despite the heat. His mother signed animatedly, and he responded in kind, his gestures less fluid than hers but practiced. When Clara returned with the drinks, the woman immediately began signing again. "You have a sadness." She signed. "Recent. Someone hurt you." Clara nearly dropped the coffee. My mother is perceptive," the man said quietly. "Forgive her directness. She means no harm." "No harm," the woman confirmed, reaching out to pat Clara's hand. Her touch was cool, far cooler than the summer night warranted. "Only concern. You remind me of my son. Both of you wear loneliness like armor." Clara forced a smile. "The tea will steep for 3 minutes. Can I get you anything else?" The man was studying her with those storm gray eyes, and Clara felt pinned. "What's your name?" "Clara." "Clara." He said it like he was tasting it, testing its weight. "I'm Nikolai. This is my mother, Irina." Irina signed. "Don't scare the poor girl with your brooding." "Nico." "She's had enough of men who don't smile." Nikolai's jaw tightened, but something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. "My mother thinks I'm intimidating." "Are you?" Clara asked before she could stop herself. Their eyes met, and the moment stretched. "Usually," he admitted. The bell chimed again. Clara turned to see 3 men enter, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. They wore suits too nice for this neighborhood, moved with the same predatory grace as Nikolai. The leader, blonde, sharp-featured, smiling, surveyed the diner like he owned it. Nikolai stood in one fluid motion, positioning himself between the newcomers and his mother. Nikolai Volkov, the blonde man said, his accent thicker than Nikolai's. How domestic. Taking your mother for late-night tea. Leave, Dmitri. Nikolai's voice was soft, lethal. This is neutral ground. Neutral ground. Dmitri laughed. How quaint. The great house of Volkov reduced to hiding in human diners. Clara's instincts screamed at her to run, but Irina's hand had found hers, gripping tight. The old woman was afraid, genuinely afraid, and that fear rooted Clara in place. Clara. Nikolai didn't look at her, didn't take his eyes off Dmitri. Take my mother through the kitchen. Get her to my car, black Mercedes. The alley behind. Keys are in my coat pocket. What? No, I can't now. The command in his voice made her move. She helped Irina up, the woman signing frantically. Not without you. Nico, please go, Nikolai repeated. Clara pulled Irina toward the kitchen, her heart hammering. Behind them, she heard Dmitri laugh again. Protecting humans now? How far you've fallen. Then the sound of breaking glass, a cry, and something that might have been a growl. Clara's hands shook as she fumbled for the keys in Nikolai's coat pocket, Irina's weight pressing against her side. The old woman was stronger than she looked, but terror had made her legs unsteady. Behind them, the sounds from the diner escalated, furniture crashing, the distinctive thud of bodies hitting walls. My son, Irina signed frantically with one hand, the other clutching Clara's arm. They'll kill him. He told us to go, Clara whispered, though her own instincts screamed the same protest. The alley reeked of rotting garbage and stale rain. The Mercedes gleamed like a shadow, sleek and black and entirely out of place. Clara's fingers closed around the keys just as the kitchen door exploded outward. Nikolai stumbled through, his coat torn, a gash across his cheekbone that should have been bleeding profusely, but only wept thin streams of something too dark to be blood. He moved with frightening speed, slamming the door behind him and dragging a dumpster across it in one fluid motion. Drive, he commanded, falling into the passenger seat as Clara scrambled behind the wheel. I can't. His hand covered hers on the keys, cool and steady, despite the violence still echoing from inside. You can. Drive now. Questions later. Something in his voice steadied her. Clara turned the ignition, the engine purring to life with predatory grace. She'd driven her brother's car before the accident, before everything fell apart. Muscle memory took over as she threw the Mercedes into reverse, tires squealing. In the rearview mirror, 3 figures emerged from the diner's back door. Dimitri's face was split in a grin that showed too many teeth. Too sharp, too white. Go, Nikolai repeated, and Clara pressed the accelerator. The city blurred past. Nikolai gave directions in that same controlled voice, even as he pressed a hand to his ribs where his shirt was torn and dark. Irina had twisted in the back seat, signing rapid-fire questions that Clara couldn't follow while driving. I'm fine, mother, Nikolai said in response. It's superficial. Dmitri drew blood. That means it means nothing. The old laws still hold. His jaw was tight. Clara, left at the next light, then straight for 2 miles. Where are we going? Clara's voice came out steadier than she felt. Somewhere safe. He glanced at her, and in the passing streetlights, his eyes reflected strangely. Like a cat's. Like nothing human. Somewhere you can't be found. I don't understand what's happening. No, he agreed quietly. But you will. They drove past the city limits, into the wooded hills where old money built estates behind iron gates. Nikolai directed her down a private drive, nearly hidden by overgrown hedges. The house that emerged from the darkness was Victorian, all sharp gables and Gothic windows, beautiful in its decay. Stay close to me, Nikolai said as they parked. He moved carefully now, that preternatural grace compromised by injury. Both of you. The wards will recognize my blood, but they need to scent you as under my protection. Wards? Clara's voice cracked. Scent? What the hell? Irina's cool hand found hers again, squeezing gently. The old woman's face was kind, despite the fear still lingering in her eyes. She signed slowly, deliberately. Trust him, please. He won't hurt you. The house's front door opened before they reached it, swinging inward on silent hinges. The entry hall was all dark wood and darker shadows, lit by candles that shouldn't still be burning at this hour. The air smelled of old books and something else, copper and spice and age. Nikolai led them to a sitting room that might have been grand once. Now it was faded elegance, velvet curtains gone threadbare, Persian rugs worn soft by centuries of footsteps. He collapsed into a wingback chair, finally allowing himself to show pain. "Sit," he said to Clara, gesturing to the sofa. "Please." She sat because her legs were shaking too hard to stand. Irina immediately went to her son, peeling back his torn shirt with practiced efficiency. The wound beneath made Clara's breath catch 3 deep gashes across his ribs. Still sluggishly weeping that to dark blood. "It's not healing," Irina signed, her hands sharp with worry. "Silver," Nikolai said through gritted teeth. Dmitri came prepared. Clara's mind was racing, trying to assemble impossible pieces. The inhuman speed, the reflecting eyes, the wounds that should be fatal but weren't. "You're not human." It wasn't a question, but Nikolai answered anyway. "No, those men, Dmitri and the others, also not human." Clara pressed her palms against her knees, feeling the world tilt. "What are you?" Nikolai met her eyes, and she saw centuries in that gaze. Centuries in sorrow and something terribly lonely. "What do you think we are, Clara?" Her mouth was dry. The word felt absurd, impossible, pulled from fiction and horror movies. But she said it anyway. "Vampires." Yes, the simple confirmation should have sent her running. Instead, Clara found herself thinking of Irina's cool touch, Nikolai's unnatural grace, the way neither had ordered food, the 2 sharp teeth and Dmitri's smile. Pieces clicking into place with terrible logic. "You're going to kill me," she heard herself say. No, Nikolai's voice was sharp, almost offended. "You're under my protection now. The moment I asked you to help my mother, the moment you touched her, you entered into our world. Dmitri will have sended you. He knows you matter to me now. I don't matter to you. I'm a waitress you met an hour ago. You showed my mother kindness." Something raw flickered across his face. "You spoke to her as a person, not an inconvenience. Do you know how rare that is? How rare any genuine kindness is in our world?" He leaned forward, wincing. "You're in danger because of me, Clara. I'm sorry, but I will keep you safe." "For how long?" "Until the threat passes." He paused. "Or until you understand enough to protect yourself." Irina's hands moved. "Stay tonight. Rest. Tomorrow we explain everything." Clara looked between them, the ancient vampire and his mother, both watching her with something like hope. Every instinct screamed that she should run, call the police, flee back to her careful, invisible life, but that life had already shattered the moment she'd signed welcome to a vampire's mother. "One night," Clara said finally. "Then you tell me everything." Nikolai's shoulders sagged with something that might have been relief. "One night, I promise." Clara couldn't sleep. The guest room Irina had shown her was beautiful in its Gothic decay, four-poster bed draped in moth-eaten velvet, wallpaper peeling in elegant strips, windows that overlooked gardens gone wild with neglect. A silver pitcher of water set on the nightstand, along with a single candle that cast dancing shadows across the ceiling. She'd tried lying down, still wearing her diner uniform because she had nothing else, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw Dmitri's sharp smile, heard the sound of Nikolai's body hitting walls, felt the weight of a world she'd never imagined pressing down on her chest. Tia. She gave up and ventured into the hallway. The house was silent in a way that felt intentional, as if it were holding its breath. Clara moved carefully, bare feet, soundless on worn carpet, drawn by a sliver of light beneath a door at the hall's end. She knocked softly. "Come in, Clara." Nikolai's voice was unsurprised, as if he'd been expecting her. She pushed open the door to find what must have been a study, once floor-to-ceiling bookshelves crammed with volumes in languages she didn't recognize, a massive desk covered in papers and maps, and Nikolai himself standing by the window, shirtless. Claire's breath caught. Not from attraction, though he was beautiful in a way that seemed almost carved, inhuman, but from the scars. His torso was a map of violence, silver lines that had to be decades old, darker marks that looked burned, and the fresh wounds across his ribs, now bandaged with gauze already seeping through. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to intrude." "You're not intruding." He turned fully toward her, making no move to cover himself. There was no vanity in the gesture, only a kind of weary honesty. "You can't sleep." No, Clara stayed in the doorway, hyper-aware of how alone they were, how strange this all was. "You said tomorrow you'd explain everything. But it is tomorrow now. Technically. Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. You want answers. I want to understand why I'm here. Why those men attacked you. Why I'm suddenly in danger for showing basic human decency. Nikolai was silent for a long moment, studying her with those storm gray eyes. Then he gestured to a leather chair near the fireplace. Sit, please. This will take time. Clara sat, drawing her knees up. Nikolai remained standing, perhaps because sitting caused him pain, or perhaps because he needed the distance. He began to speak, his voice measured and careful. There are 7 great houses of vampires in the Americas, he said. Old bloodlines that go back centuries, some to the old world, some born here. Each house controls territory, resources, influence. We live by a set of laws older than any human government laws about feeding, about territory, about how we interact with your kind. Feeding, Clara repeated, her mouth dry. We require blood to survive. But we're not monsters, Clara. The laws are strict. Consent must be given freely. No killing unless in self-defense or war. No turning humans without permission from their house. No exposure to the wider world. His jaw tightened. These laws keep us safe. Keep both our kinds safe. And Dmitri? Dmitri serves House Corvinus. They're old blood, powerful. And they've been pushing against the boundaries for decades. Wanting more territory, more freedom, fewer restrictions. Nikolai's hands curled into fists. My house Volkov has always advocated for the old ways. For restraint. For protection of humans, not exploitation. Clara watched him carefully, seeing the tension in every line of his body. That makes you enemies, that makes us targets. He finally moved, lowering himself into the chair opposite hers with visible effort. There's a war coming, Clara. House Corvinus has been building alliances, breaking treaties. 3 months ago, they killed the head of House Sartorius. Made it look like human violence. The other houses are choosing sides, and your house is nearly extinct. The words came out flat, emotionless, but Clara heard the grief beneath. We were never large. My father ruled for 3 centuries, keeping peace, making alliances through wisdom rather than fear. 10 years ago, House Corvinus orchestrated a massacre, killed most of my family in a single night. Now it's just my mother and me, a few loyal retainers and allies too frightened to publicly support us. Clara's chest tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be. His eyes met hers, sharp and tired. We chose this fight knowing the cost. But my mother, his voice cracked slightly. She's fragile now. The massacre left her weakened. She needs safety, peace, and I can't give her either while Corvinus hunts us. Why were you at the diner? Because neutral ground matters. Because the old laws say public human spaces can't be used for violence without consequences. Because I needed 1 hour where my mother could pretend to be normal. He leaned back, wincing. Instead, I brought danger to your door. Clara was quiet, processing. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten, not dawn yet, but its promise. She noticed Nikolai's eyes flicking toward the window, attention entering his posture. The sun, she said suddenly. You have to avoid it. Yes. I have perhaps 30 minutes before I need to seek shelter. He studied her. You're taking this remarkably well. I'm not actually. Clara's laugh was shaky. I'm terrified. But I'm also, she paused, searching for words. I spent 3 years making myself invisible, hiding from my own life because facing it hurt too much. And now I'm in a gothic mansion with vampires. And somehow I feel more alive than I have since. She stopped. Since? Nikolai prompted gently. Since my brother died. The words came out before she could stop them. Car accident. 2 years ago. He was 19, deaf since birth, and the other driver didn't hear him honking, didn't see him signing frantically, just plowed through a red light, and her throat closed. Understanding dawned in Nikolai's eyes. That's why you learned sign language. Why? You recognize my mother's loneliness. She reminded me of him, Clara admitted. The way people would look through him, like being deaf, made him less real. And you, she stopped herself. And me? You look at her like she's your whole world. Like you'd burn everything down to keep her safe. Clara's voice was barely a whisper. I would have done the same for my brother. If I'd been there. Where were you? Portland. At my engagement party. The old bitterness rose. By the time anyone called me, he was already gone. Nikolai was quiet for a long moment. Then, grief is a kind of immortality. The dead live on in our wounds. That's bleak. It's vampire wisdom. But his voice was soft, understanding. We carry our losses forever, Clara. It doesn't heal. We just learn to bear the weight. The sky was lighter now, pink bleeding into gray. Nikolai stood slowly. I need to go, but thank you for trusting me with your story. Will I see you tomorrow? Tonight, I mean? Yes. My mother will want to check on you. She's quite taken with you. He moved toward the door, then paused. Clara, you're not invisible anymore. Not here, not to us. He left, and Clara sat in the growing dawn, feeling the truth of his words settle into her bones. Clara woke to afternoon sunlight streaming through gaps in the heavy curtains, disoriented and aching from sleeping in her uniform. For a moment, she forgot where she was, then memory crashed back. Vampires, Nikolai's scars, the weight of his grief matching her own. A soft knock preceded Irina entering with a tray. The old woman smiled, setting down tea and what looked like fresh bread with jam. She signed, "Good afternoon, sleeper. I thought you might be hungry." Clara sat up, automatically signing back, "Thank you. What time is it?" "Nearly 3. You needed the rest." Irina settled onto the edge of the bed with surprising grace, her movements fluid despite her apparent age. "My son said you talked last night, that you shared difficult truths." Clara's hands moved slowly, rusty. "He told me about your family, about the massacre." "I'm so sorry." Irina's expression clouded. "Loss is the price of a long life, human or vampire. We all pay it eventually." She paused, then signed with deliberate care, "Tell me about your brother." Something in Clara's chest cracked open. Maybe it was the gentle command in Irina's face, or maybe it was simply that she hadn't been able to talk about Michael to anyone who understood. Her ex-fiancé had called her grief excessive, her sister had said she needed to move on, her parents had been too consumed by their own mourning to see hers. Her hands began to move, shaky at first, then gaining confidence. She told Irina about Michael's laugh, his terrible jokes, the way he'd taught her to see the world differently, not as broken or limited, but simply another way of being. How he'd wanted to be a teacher, to show other deaf kids they could be anything. How the drunk driver had taken all of that away in seconds. "He sounds like he was remarkable." Irina signed when Clara's hands finally stilled. "He was. And I wasn't there. You were living your own life." "That's not a crime, Clara." "My fiancé thought so. He said if I'd been a better sister, more present, maybe." Clara stopped, old wounds throbbing. "He married my sister 6 months later. Said she understood family better than I did." Irina's hands moved sharply. "He was a fool and a coward. You lost your brother and your family in one blow." Clara nodded, throat tight. "So I ran, changed my name slightly, picked a random city, became nobody." "But you're not nobody." Irina reached out, taking Clara's hands in her cool ones. "You spoke to me last night, really spoke. Do you know how long it's been since someone made that effort? Since someone saw me as more than Nikolai's burden. You're not a burden to him, no. Never to him." Irina's smile was sad. "But to the other houses, to even our own allies, I'm a weakness. The deaf vampire matriarch who can't hear enemies approaching, who requires accommodation in a world that values strength above all." Her signs turned fierce. "My son has protected me for a decade, fought for me, nearly died for me. And last night, a human waitress showed me more genuine kindness in 5 minutes than most vampires have in years." Clara felt tears threatening. "I didn't do anything special. You saw me. That's everything." They sat in comfortable silence, hands still clasped, until Irina rose and signed, "Come, let me find you proper clothes. You can't spend your sanctuary in a diner uniform." The house revealed itself in daylight as even more faded than Clara had realized. Irina led her through hallways lined with portraits, stern-faced vampires in clothing from different centuries, all bearing the same sharp cheekbones and storm-gray eyes as Nikolai, "Our ancestors," Irina explained. "House Volkov, back to the founding in 1347. We were scholars, diplomats, never warriors, though we learned to fight when necessary." They reached what must have been Irina's room, a suite of connected chambers that smelled of lavender and old books. The wardrobe held clothing from multiple eras, and Irina pulled out simple, modern pieces: jeans, a soft sweater, undergarments still wrapped in tissue. For guests, she signed at Clara's questioning look. "We hope to have them again someday." Clara changed in the adjoining bathroom, marveling at how the clothes fit perfectly. When she emerged, Irina was standing by the window, looking out at the overgrown gardens with an expression of deep melancholy. "What happens now?" Clara signed. "Nikolai said, I'm in danger. But what does that mean exactly? Irina turned, her signs, careful and serious. House Corvinus knows you helped us. In our world, that makes you either a potential ally or a vulnerability to exploit. Dmitri will want to know who you are, what you mean to Nikolai, whether you can be used as leverage, but I don't mean anything to him. I just met him. You showed kindness to his mother. You risked yourself to get me to safety. In vampire culture, those debts are sacred. Irina's expression softened. And my son is lonely, Clara, terribly lonely. He hasn't let anyone close in years. It's too dangerous, and everyone wants something from him. But you wanted nothing. You just helped. Clara's pulse quickened. I don't know what you're implying, but Irina laughed silently, hands moving quickly. I'm implying nothing, only observing. My son needs allies. You need purpose. Perhaps you found each other at the right time. Before Clara could respond, a sound echoed through the house, a sharp crack like breaking wood, followed by a low alarm that seemed to vibrate through the walls themselves. Irina's face went pale. Her hands formed a single sign, intruder. They ran, or rather, Irina ran with inhuman speed while Clara struggled to keep up. They burst into the main hall to find two figures in dark clothing examining the front door, which hung crooked on its hinges. Not Dmitri and his men. These were women, one, tall and dark-skinned, with silver rings through her eyebrows. The other, petite and red-haired, with a face like a porcelain doll. Irina Volkova, the tall woman said, her voice carrying an accent Clara couldn't place. We need to speak with your son, now. He's resting, Irina said aloud, her voice careful and slightly flat, the voice of someone who'd learned to speak without hearing themselves. You've broken our wards. That's an act of aggression. So is harboring humans without declaration. The red-haired woman's eyes fixed on Clara with predatory interest. Is this the one Corvinus is hunting? The waitress who helped you escape? Clara's blood went cold. She's under our protection, Irina said firmly. Your protection? The tall woman laughed. House Volkov is two vampires clinging to a crumbling estate. You have no protection to offer. Then why are you here? The voice came from the stairs, and Clara turned to see Nikolai descending, fully dressed now, despite the daylight outside. His face was harder than she'd seen it, all softness gone. If we're so powerless, why does House Thorn break our doors? The tall woman's expression shifted to something like respect. Because you still matter, Nikolai Volkov. And we have a proposition. Nikolai positioned himself between the intruders and Clara with fluid precision, a movement so instinctive it seemed unconscious. House Thorn hasn't contacted us in 3 years. Not since you chose neutrality over honor. What proposition could you possibly have now? The tall woman House Thorn, Clara realized, didn't flinch at his tone. The proposition of survival. May we sit, or do you prefer to conduct diplomacy in your entrance hall like common merchants? Irina signed something sharp at Nikolai that Clara couldn't fully catch, but the meaning was clear. Be careful. Nikolai's jaw tightened, but he gestured toward the sitting room they'd occupied the night before. Clara, stay close, he said, without looking at her. Not a request. The sitting room felt smaller with 5 people in it. The Thorn vampires moved with the same predatory grace as Nikolai, but where his movements held restraint, theirs carried barely leashed violence. The red-haired one kept glancing at Clara with an expression that made her skin crawl. This is Anara, the tall woman said, indicating herself. And my sister Lisette. We speak for House Thorn with full authority from our matriarch. She settled into a chair with dangerous elegance. Let's be direct. Corvinus is moving toward open war. They've secured alliances with houses Draculidi and Bathory. 3 great houses against the remaining 4. Old news, Nikolai said coldly. You still haven't explained why you're here. Because House Thorn is reconsidering its neutrality. Anra's eyes were sharp, calculating. The balance of power is shifting. If Corvinus wins, they'll rewrite the old laws. No more consent requirements. No more protection for humans. No more restraint of any kind. Clara felt her stomach drop. Nikolai's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. They want to return to the old ways, Lisette added, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. When humans were cattle. When we fed and killed as we pleased. When exposure didn't matter because humans were too terrified to fight back. That world would destroy us all, Irina said quietly. Humans have weapons now. Technology. They would hunt us to extinction. Corvinus believes otherwise. Anara leaned forward. They think they can control it. Use humans who are desperate enough to serve willingly, eliminate those who resist. Create a new world order with vampires at the top. Nikolai's laugh was bitter. And House Thorn suddenly grows a conscience? House Thorn has self-interest. Anna's voice sharpened. We've survived 8 centuries by reading the winds. Corvinus is drunk on power, and drunk leaders make catastrophic mistakes. When this war ends, and it will end, we want to be on the winning side. You think House Volkov can win? Nikolai gestured at the faded room, at himself and his mother. Look at us. We're ghosts haunting a mausoleum. You're a symbol, Anara countered. The last of the old diplomat houses. The ones who negotiated the original treaties with human governments, who created the laws that kept us hidden and safe. The remaining neutral houses, Montague, Castellane, even the smaller bloodlines respect what you represent. They won't move for Thorn, but they might move for Volkov. Clara watched Nikolai process this, saw the weight settling on his shoulders. Irina was signing rapidly, but Nikolai shook his head. What exactly are you proposing? He asked. An alliance. Public declaration of support. House Thorn's resources and warriors in exchange for House Volkov's legitimacy and influence. Anna's smile was sharp. Together, we approach the neutral houses. Build a coalition. Force Corvinus to back down or face unified opposition. And if they don't back down, then we fight. And we win. The silence stretched. Clara could feel the tension thrumming through the room like a living thing. Lisette's eyes kept drifting to her, assessing, calculating. The human, Lisette said suddenly. She's the reason Corvinus moved against you directly, isn't she? Dmitri doesn't break neutral ground rules over nothing. The human has a name, Clara said before she could stop herself. And she's right here. Lisette's smile widened, showing too many teeth. Brave little thing. Tell me, Clara with a name, do you understand what you've walked into? I'm beginning to, Clara said, meeting those predatory eyes despite her racing heart. A war over whether humans are people or food. Not exactly complicated. Oh, I like her. Lisette looked at Nikolai. Is she yours? Have you claimed her? She's under my protection, Nikolai said tightly. That's all that matters. Protection is temporary. Claiming is forever. Lisette's gaze was calculating. Corvinus will assume she's your weakness. They'll use her to get to you, to draw you out, to force mistakes. Unless she paused meaningfully. Unless what? Clara demanded. Unless she becomes an asset instead of a liability. Anna's voice was pragmatic. Turn her. Make her vampire. Then she's family protected by house law, and Corvinus loses their leverage. Clara's blood turned to ice. Nikolai was on his feet in an instant, his voice dropping to something that barely sounded human. No, it's the logical solution. I said no. The room temperature seemed to drop. She didn't ask for this. She doesn't deserve to be trapped in our world forever because she showed my mother kindness. Turning humans without their explicit, informed, uncoerced consent violates every law we have. Or have you forgotten that? Anara raised her hands placatingly. I meant no offense. I simply presented an option. Present better ones. Irina's hands moved sharply. Enough. All of you. The girl is terrified, and you're discussing her like she's a chess piece. Nikolai's expression softened fractionally as he looked at Clara. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have heard that. I'm glad I did, Clara said, though her voice shook. At least now I know what I'm worth in your world. That's not. Nikolai stopped himself, frustration clear on his face. You're worth more than any strategy. But they're right about one thing. Corvinus will come for you. And I can't. His voice cracked. I can't lose anyone else. The vulnerability in those words pierced through Clara's fear. She saw him suddenly as he truly was, not a powerful vampire lord, but a man who'd watched his family slaughtered, who carried his mother's safety like a stone around his neck, who'd been alone for so long he'd forgotten what it meant to let someone matter. Then teach me, she heard herself say. Your world, your rules, your enemies. Make me understand so I can protect myself. I'm not helpless, Nikolai. I'm just ignorant. Something shifted in his expression, surprise, then something warmer. You want to stay? I want to stop running. Clara's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. I've been invisible for 3 years. Maybe it's time to be seen. Anara stood smoothly. Then we have an accord. House Thorn will send warriors to reinforce your wards. In return, House Volkov will meet with the neutral houses and advocate for alliance. And the human, she looked at Clara. She'll need training. We have people who can teach her. I'll teach her myself, Nikolai said firmly, Lisette laughed. How romantic. Come, sister. We've accomplished what we came for. She paused at the door, looking back at Clara. Survive the next week, little human. Then we'll see if you're truly brave or simply foolish. When they were gone, the house seemed to exhale. Nikolai slumped slightly, the weight of leadership lifting for just a moment. Irina moved to her son, signing something Clara couldn't see. She's right, Nikolai said quietly. I shouldn't have let you make that choice without understanding the cost. Then help me understand, Clara said. Starting tonight, no more sheltering me from the truth. Nikolai met her eyes, and something passed between them, recognition, perhaps, or the beginning of trust. Tonight, he agreed. I'll teach you everything. Night fell like a curtain, and the house transformed. Candles ignited themselves as Clara watched, flames springing to life with no visible source. The air grew thicker, charged with something she couldn't name. Through the windows, she glimpsed figures moving in the darkness, House Thorn's warriors. Anara had said, reinforcing the wards. Nikolai found her in the library, surrounded by books she couldn't read. Most were in languages dead before English was born, their leather bindings cracked with age. Feeling overwhelmed? His voice was gentler than it had been with the Thorn vampires, the hardness stripped away, completely. Clara closed a tome written in what might have been Sanskrit. I don't know where to start. Start with the basics. Nikolai settled into the chair across from her, and Clara noticed he moved more easily now, the silver wounds healing at last. What do you want to know first? Clara considered. There were 1,000 questions, but one rose above the rest. How old are you? A slight smile. 237 years. I was turned in 1789, during the French Revolution. My human name was Nikolai Alexandrovich Volkov. I was a diplomat's son, 23 years old, engaged to be married. His eyes grew distant. Then I encountered a vampire who saw potential in me. Or perhaps just opportunity. Did you want it? To become this? No, the word was stark, honest. I was dying, stabbed in an alley by thieves who wanted my family's documents. She offered me a choice, death or transformation. I chose survival. I've spent 2 centuries wondering if I chose correctly. Clara leaned forward. Would you choose differently now? I would have asked better questions. His gaze met hers. The transformation is agony, Clara. 3 days of your body dying and remaking itself. When you wake, you're hungry in a way humans can't comprehend. Every heartbeat in the world calls to you like a siren song. And the cost, he paused. You lose the sun. You lose aging, which means you lose the comfort of time ending. You lose the simple pleasure of food, of taste, of warmth. Everything becomes about blood and survival and the endless weight of years. But you gain other things, Clara said quietly. Strength, speed, time to learn, to grow, to watch everyone you love die. Nikolai's voice was soft but cutting. I've buried 4 human families. Friends, lovers, people I cared for, who aged and withered while I stayed frozen. That's the real curse, Clara, not the sun or the blood. The loneliness, the raw pain in his voice made her chest ache. Is that why you've stayed isolated? Just you and your mother? After the massacre, isolation seemed safest. Corvinus killed my father, my siblings, our retainers, 23 vampires in one night. They used silver and fire and treachery. My mother and I survived only because we were traveling. His hands curled into fists. I brought her home to ashes and corpses. She hasn't spoken aloud since that night. The trauma took her voice, and I couldn't. He stopped, breathing carefully. I couldn't risk anyone else. Couldn't bear anyone else dying for my family's name. Clara understood that isolation. The way grief could wall you off from the world, make you choose numbness over the risk of more pain. But you're choosing differently now. The alliance with Thorn, training me. That's not isolation, that's desperation, Nikolai corrected. But there was something in his eyes, a flicker of hope perhaps. Corvinus won't stop. They want our house extinct, our legacy erased. If I have to break my own rules to stop them, I will. Tell me about vampire laws, Clara said, shifting the subject. You mentioned consent requirements, blood oaths. What do I need to know? Nikolai seemed relieved by the practical focus. The laws were established 500 years ago, when humans began organizing, when the Inquisition and witch hunts made exposure to dangerous. The great houses created rules to keep us hidden and ensure survival. He began explaining systematically, and Clara listened intently, committing each law to memory. Feeding requires consent, freely given. Most vampires maintain agreements with willing humans' blood, donors who understand what they're providing, and receive compensation or protection in return. Killing humans is forbidden, except in self-defense or declared war. Violations mean execution. Turning humans requires both the human's explicit consent and approval from their house. Unauthorized transformations result in both sire and progeny being destroyed. Exposure to the wider human world is punishable by death. Individual humans may know, but mass revelation threatens all vampires. Blood oaths are binding and sacred. Once sworn, they cannot be broken without destroying the oathmaker. What happens if someone breaks these laws? Clara asked. The council convenes representatives from each great house. They investigate, judge, and execute sentence. It's brutal, but effective. We've maintained secrecy for 5 centuries through fear of consequences, but Corvinus is breaking these laws. Corvinus believes they're above the laws. That power trumps tradition. Nikolai's voice hardened. They've been moving slowly, testing boundaries. Small violations first, then larger ones. Killing Sartorius was the boldest move yet, eliminating an entire house and claiming it was human violence. How did they hide it? They burned the estate and planted evidence. Made it look like a hate crime. Human authorities investigated and found nothing unusual. His expression was grim. That's the danger. If Corvinus can murder a great house and hide it as human violence, they can do anything. Clara felt cold. And I'm caught in the middle of this. Yes. Nikolai leaned forward, his eyes intense. Which is why you need to understand vampire nature, not just politics. We're predators, Clara. Even the most civilized, most restrained of us were built to hunt, to kill, to dominate. The hunger never stops. We just learn to control it. Are you afraid of hurting me? The question hung between them. Nikolai's jaw tightened. Every moment. Your heartbeat, I can hear it constantly. Your scent, blood and life and warmth. Every instinct I have says to feed, to take, to consume. But I've had 2 centuries to build, control, and I've fed recently. You're safe. When did you feed? 2 days ago. I have donors in the city, humans who understand the arrangement and are compensated well. I feed once every 10 days, never to the point of harm. It's clinical, controlled. Nothing like. He stopped. Like what? Like the old ways. When feeding was intimate, emotional, dangerous. When vampires and humans formed bonds that destroyed them both. His voice had gone rough. That kind of feeding is forbidden now. Too much risk of exposure, of attachment, of losing control. Clara's pulse quickened at something in his tone, not fear, but curiosity she shouldn't feel. Have you ever fed that way? Once, a lifetime ago. Nikolai stood abruptly, putting distance between them. It ended badly. The human died. I learned why the laws exist. The grief in his voice told Clara not to push. Instead, she asked, what do I need to know to protect myself? Not just from Corvinus. From any vampire. He turned back to her, something like respect in his eyes. Smart question. First, understand that vampire senses are heightened. We hear heartbeats, smell fear, see in darkness. Lying is difficult because we read physiological responses. But you can learn to control your reactions, steady your breathing, mask your scent with stronger smells. What else? Silver burns us. Iron disrupts our abilities. Sunlight is fatal. But takes time. We don't burst into flames. We burn slowly, agonizingly. Decapitation or heart destruction kills us permanently. Anything else, we heal, given time and blood. How do I kill a vampire if I need to? The question made him smile, sad but genuine. You don't. You run, you hide. You survive until help arrives. A human can't fight a vampire and win. But you're teaching me anyway. I'm teaching you to think like us. To anticipate our moves, understand our limitations, exploit our weaknesses. He moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the candlelit library. The best weapon you have is here. He tapped her temple gently. Vampires are old, Clara. We think in patterns established over centuries. You're young, creative, unpredictable. Use that. Clara met his eyes, seeing the centuries behind them, but also the man lonely, scared, desperate to protect what little he had left. Thank you, she said quietly, for trusting me with this. Thank you for staying. His voice was barely above a whisper. For not running when you had the chance. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither of them named. Then Irina's presence broke it. She appeared in the doorway, signing rapidly. Nikolai's expression went hard. Corvinus forces at the north boundary. 20 vampires. It's begun. The house erupted into controlled chaos. Thorn warriors materialize from shadows, moving with military precision. Anar appeared at the top of the stairs. Already armed with weapons, Clara had never seen silver-edged blades that seemed to drink the candlelight. 20 Corvinus soldiers, Anara confirmed, her voice clipped and professional. They're testing the wards, probing for weaknesses. This is reconnaissance, not a full assault. Yet, Nikolai was already moving, checking windows, assessing positions. How long until they breach? The wards will hold for an hour, maybe 2. But they'll call reinforcements once they know our numbers. Anra's eyes flickered to Clara. The human needs to be secured. If they breach, she'll be their first target. I have a name, Clara said again, frustration bleeding through fear. And I'm not hiding while you fight. You're human, Lisette said, appearing with disturbing speed beside her sister. You'll die in seconds if they reach you. Be practical. She stays with me, Nikolai said, his tone brooking no argument. Second floor study. Reinforced walls. Only one entrance. If they breach, that's our fallback position. Irina was already gathering items, candles, what looked like medical supplies, a wooden box Clara couldn't identify. Her hands moved in sharp commands to the Thorn warriors, who responded immediately. Despite her deafness, she moved through the chaos like a conductor leading an orchestra. Come, Nikolai took Claire's arm, his touch cool but firm. Now, they climbed to the second floor, Irina following. The study was exactly as Nikolai described: stone walls, narrow windows, a heavy oak door with iron reinforcement. He bolted it behind them and began moving furniture, creating barriers. What can I do? Clara asked, refusing to be useless. Nikolai paused, considering. Then he reached into a drawer and withdrew something small and silver, a knife with a blade no longer than her palm. Iron and silver alloy. If a vampire gets close, go for the eyes or throat. Don't hesitate. Don't try to be merciful. Survive. Clara took the knife, feeling its weight. I've never stabbed anyone. Let's hope you don't have to tonight. His eyes held hers. But if it comes to it, if someone breaches this room and I'm down, you protect my mother. Whatever it takes. Promise me. The intensity in his voice made her throat tight. I promise. Irina had opened the wooden box, revealing vials of dark liquid blood. Clara realized with a chill. The old woman's hands moved. In case of injury, we heal faster with fresh blood. Outside, the sounds began. Not fighting yet, but the prelude: crashes against the wards, magical resistance crackling like static electricity. Clara moved to the window, peering through a gap in the curtains. The Corvinus forces were visible now, pale figures in dark clothing, circling the property like wolves. She spotted Dmitri among them, his blonde hair catching moonlight. He was laughing, she realized. Actually laughing, as if this were sport. They're enjoying this, she said. Sickened. Corvinus breeds warriors for pleasure, not duty. Nikolai had moved beside her, so close she could feel the unnatural coolness radiating from him. They're fed on violence and dominance. War is recreation to them. A massive crash shook the house. The wards had buckled, but held. Through the floor, Clara heard Anara shouting orders, heard the distinctive sound of blades being drawn. Why attack now? Clara asked. Why not wait until they have overwhelming force? Because they want to know our strength. Nikolai's tactical mind was evident in his voice. They know Thorn is here, probably have known since Anar arrived. They're testing how many warriors we have, how our defenses work, where the weak points are. This is information gathering. Will they breach tonight? Possibly. Probably not. They'll want better intelligence first. But Corvinus doesn't always act rationally. If Dmitri is leading, there's a chance he'll push too hard, get carried away. As if summoned by his name, Dmitri's voice carried through the night, amplified somehow. Nikolai Volkov, come out and face us properly. Or do you hide behind Thorn's warriors now? How the mighty have fallen. Nikolai's jaw clenched, but he didn't move toward the window. Let me negotiate. Dmitri called again. Perhaps we can come to an arrangement. Give us the human, and we'll leave your pathetic estate standing. She's what we really want, after all. Clara's blood went cold. Irina's hands moved sharply. Lies. They want us extinct. The girl is just an excuse. I know, mother, Nikolai said quietly. Another impact against the wards, stronger this time. The house shuddered, and Clara heard something crack wood or stone, she couldn't tell. Downstairs, fighting had begun, the distinctive sounds of supernatural combat, too fast and violent for human conflict. Nikolai moved to the door, listening intently. 3 breached the ground floor. Thorn's warriors are engaging. The main wards still hold. How can you tell all that from sound? Clara asked. 200 years of surviving. His expression was grim. I can distinguish footsteps, breathing patterns, blade types by their ring. The 3 who breached are young vampires under 50 years. Dangerous but inexperienced. A scream cut through the night, pain and rage mixed. Vampire, not human. Clara flinched. One of ours or theirs? Irina signed. Theirs, Nikolai confirmed. Anara just took down a Corvinus warrior. First blood to us. But his tone wasn't triumphant. If anything, he sounded more worried. Clara was about to ask why, when understanding dawned. First blood means they'll escalate. Smart girl. Nikolai's smile was mirthless. Yes, Corvinus doesn't tolerate losses well. They'll call in more forces, push harder. This reconnaissance just became a battle, as if on cue. The wards shattered with a sound like breaking glass magnified 1,000 times. The magical barrier that had held them safe dissolved, and suddenly the house was exposed. Positions. Anna's voice, carried from below. North and east entrances. They're coming through. Nikolai grabbed Clara, pulling her away from the window. Behind the desk. Stay low. Mother with her. Irina moved immediately, positioning herself in front of Clara like a shield. Despite her fragility, her expression was fierce. She'd survived a massacre. She wouldn't fall easily tonight. The sounds of combat intensified, crashes, snarls, the wet sound of blades finding flesh. Something heavy hit the stairs, then began ascending. Multiple somethings. Footsteps too fast to be human. Nikolai stood before the door, utterly still, a silver blade in each hand. In the candlelight, he looked like something from a medieval painting, a warrior saint, beautiful and terrible. The door exploded inward despite its reinforcement, wood splintering like paper. 2 Corvinus vampires burst through, and Clara finally saw supernatural combat up close. It was nothing like movies. No dramatic poses or witty banter. Just brutal, efficient violence. Nikolai moved like water and lightning combined, his blades finding throats and hearts with surgical precision. The first vampire fell, truly dead, before Clara even registered the movement. The second was faster, more experienced. She and Nikolai traded blows that blurred together, too quick for Clara's eyes to follow. The female vampire was laughing, enjoying herself, driving Nikolai back toward where Clara and Irina hid. Irina's hands moved. The vial. Second from left. Throw it at her face. Clara didn't question. She grabbed the indicated vial, the glass warm to touch, and threw hard. Her aim was true, honed by years of serving drinks. The vial shattered against the vampire's face, and she screamed. Holy water, Clara realized. Or something like it. The vampire's skin blistered and smoked. Her distraction lasting just long enough for Nikolai to drive both blades through her back and out her chest. Piercing her heart from behind, she fell, truly dead. And the room went silent except for ragged breathing. Nikolai turned to Clara. Blood splattered across his face, his eyes wild and ancient. For a moment, she saw the predator beneath the man, saw what he truly was when survival stripped away civilization. Then his expression softened, humanity returning. Are you hurt? No, Clara's voice shook. Are you? Nothing that won't heal. He looked at the bodies, then at his mother. Good throw, Irina signed. I taught her well in 30 seconds. Despite everything, the violence, the fear, the blood, Clara felt something like pride. She'd helped. She hadn't frozen or fled. She'd acted, but the battle wasn't over. Through the shattered door, the sounds of combat continued, and somewhere in the night, Dmitri was still laughing. The silence after violence felt heavier than the combat itself. Nikolai stood over the fallen vampires, chest heaving with unnecessary breaths, a habit from his human life, Clara realized, not a biological need. Blood painted his face and hands in dark streaks that looked black in the candlelight. We need to move, he said, his voice rough. This room is compromised. They'll send more. Irina was already gathering the vials, her movements precise despite the tremor in her hands. She signed to Clara. Can you run? Clara tested her legs, found them steadier than expected. The adrenaline flooding her system was a blessing and a curse. She could move, but the crash would come later. Yes. Where? The catacombs, Nikolai said, wiping his blades on the fallen vampire's clothing with casual efficiency that made Clara's stomach turn. Underground passages beneath the house. They're older than the estate itself, built during the Civil War. Even Corvinus doesn't know all the entrances. From below, Enner's voice rose in a sharp command, followed by more sounds of fighting. Something crashed, furniture or perhaps a wall. The house itself seemed to be dying around them. Nikolai moved to a bookshelf, pulling specific volumes in sequence. A section of wall clicked and swung inward, revealing narrow stone stairs descending into darkness. Cold air wafted up, smelling of earth and age and something else Clara couldn't identify. Mother first, Nikolai ordered. Then, Clara, I'll cover our retreat. Irina didn't argue. She descended quickly, one hand trailing the wall for guidance, moving with the confidence of someone who'd walked this path many times. Clara followed, clutching her small blade, wishing desperately for a flashlight. The darkness was absolute. Clara's human eyes were useless here, and she had to move by touch, feeling each step carefully. Behind her, Nikolai sealed the entrance. Somehow she heard stone grinding against stone, then felt his cool hand on her shoulder. I've got you, he murmured. 20 more steps, then level ground. Trust me, Clara did, letting him guide her descent. The sounds of battle faded above them, muffled by stone and earth. When they reached the bottom, Nikolai moved past her, and suddenly soft light bloomed, bioluminescent moss clinging to the walls, casting everything in eerie blue-green. The catacombs were more extensive than Clara had imagined. Not just tunnels, but rooms carved from rock, some containing old furniture draped in cloth, others filled with crates and boxes. The air was cool and stale, undisturbed for years. This was my father's emergency refuge, Nikolai explained, leading them deeper. He prepared for the worst, but never expected it to come from other vampires. He thought the threat would be human government agencies, vampire hunters, exposure, not our own kind turning traitor. They reached a central chamber with a table, chairs, and Clara blinked in surprise. Modern amenities. A generator in the corner, connected to lights that Nikolai switched on. Shelves lined with supplies, water, non-perishable food, medical equipment, and racks of weapons that gleamed with silver edge. How long can we stay down here? Clara asked. As long as necessary. Days, if it comes to that. Nikolai was checking his wounds now, peeling back his torn shirt to reveal gashes that were already starting to close. But I need to know what's happening above. Mother, can you? Irina was already moving to a corner where an old speaking tube protruded from the wall. She placed her hand against it, concentrating, then signed. Vibrations. Fighting has moved to the east wing. Multiple combatants. Heavy damage to the structure. How many Corvinus forces remain? Nikolai asked. Irina's face creased with concentration. Difficult to tell. At least 10. Maybe more. Thorn warriors are holding but taking casualties. Clara felt sick. People, vampires. But still people were dying above them. We can't just hide down here while they fight for us. They're not fighting for us. Nikolai's voice was hard. They're fighting for their own survival. If Corvinus wins this battle, Thorn is next. Then Montague. Then Castellane. Until every house that opposes them is ash. Then help them. Clara's voice cracked. You're a warrior. You have weapons here. You're just hiding. I'm protecting my mother. Nikolai's shout echoed off stone walls. I'm protecting you. Do you think I want to cower in these tombs while my allies bleed? But if I die tonight, if I fall to Dimitri's blade, then House Volkov ends forever. My mother becomes a target with no protection. You become. He stopped, breathing hard. I become what? Clara stepped closer, anger overriding fear. Corvinus' prisoner? Their victim? I'm already that, Nikolai. The moment you asked me to help your mother, the moment I chose to stay, I became part of this war. Hiding won't change that. Irina's hands moved sharply. She's right. And you know it. Nikolai looked between them, something breaking in his expression. I can't lose either of you. I can't survive that again. Then don't lose us. Clara moved to the weapon racks, her small blade, suddenly feeling inadequate. Teach me to fight properly. Give your mother weapons she can use. And then we go back up there and we end this. Because if Corvinus wins tonight, hiding just delays the inevitable. You're human, Nikolai said, but his voice had lost its conviction. You'll die in seconds against vampire warriors, maybe. Clara selected a longer blade still manageable for her size but with better reach. Or maybe I'll be the unpredictable element you talked about. The thing they don't expect. Irina had armed herself too, Clara noticed. Not with blades, but with vials from her collection, plus what looked like small explosive devices. The old woman's eyes were fierce, determined. She signed, I've hidden long enough. We fight together or we fall together. Nikolai closed his eyes, and Clara saw the weight of centuries pressing down on him. The accumulated losses, the grief, the responsibility. When he opened them again, something had changed, not surrender but acceptance. If we do this, he said quietly, you follow my lead absolutely. No heroics, no unnecessary risks. We fight as a unit, protect each other, and retreat the moment I say. Understood? Understood, Clara agreed. Irina signed her agreement as well. Nikolai moved to the weapon racks, selecting pieces with practiced efficiency. He handed Clara a vest Kevlar reinforced with silver mesh. Won't stop claws or fangs, but it'll help with blades. Put it on. As Clara struggled with the fastenings, Nikolai helped, his cool fingers brushing her collarbone. Their eyes met, and Clara saw fear there, not for himself but for her. For what he was allowing. Why did you really stay? He asked softly. The truth. Clara considered lying, then decided he deserved honesty. Because I'm tired of running. Because when your mother looked at me, she saw me, really saw me for the first time in years. Because you're carrying grief just like mine, and somehow that makes this godforsaken situation feel less lonely. She paused. And because if I die tonight, at least I'll die mattering to someone. That's more than I've had since Michael died. Nikolai's hand cupped her face with surprising gentleness. You matter, Clara, more than is wise, more than is safe. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. If you die tonight, I'll carry that weight forever. So please, please stay alive. Same to you, Clara whispered. The moment stretched between them, charged with everything unsaid. Then Irina's hand on Nikolai's shoulder broke the spell. She signed, the fighting has intensified. Anara is calling for reinforcement. We need to move now. Nikolai stepped back, his expression hardening into the warrior Clara had glimpsed during the fight. Then let's not keep them waiting. Clara, stay between mother and me. If anything comes at you that I miss, go for the throat with everything you have. Don't think, just act. They climbed back through the darkness, Clara's heart pounding so hard she was sure every vampire in the estate could hear it. The passage opened behind a different panel in the kitchen this time, where the fighting hadn't yet reached, but the sounds were close. Too close. Crashes and screams and the wet sounds of violence echoing through halls that had once been elegant. Nikolai peered around the doorframe, then pulled back sharply. 6 Corvinus warriors in the main hall. 3 Thorn defending. Anara is injured, I can smell her blood from here. Lisette is holding the main entrance, but barely. What's the plan? Clara asked. Nikolai's smile was sharp and dangerous. We even the odds. Mother, you know what to do with those explosives? Irina's returning smile was equally fierce. I've been waiting decades to use them. Then let's remind Corvinus why House Volkov once ruled negotiations. Nikolai's eyes gleamed in the dim light. Through diplomacy when possible, through fire when necessary, they moved into the hall, and the real battle began. The main hall was a battlefield painted in shadow and blood. Chandeliers hung broken, casting fractured light across bodies, some truly dead, others wounded and healing. Anara fought 3 Corvinus warriors at once, her movements growing slower as blood poured from a gash across her ribs. Lisette held the entrance against 2 more, her porcelain face twisted in a snarl. Nikolai moved first, a blur of calculated violence. He hit the nearest Corvinus warrior from behind, silver blade, finding the spine with surgical precision. The vampire crumpled, paralyzed, but not dead. A mercy Nikolai couldn't afford to give twice. Irina was already moving with purpose, placing her small devices at strategic points along the walls. Clara couldn't understand the pattern until she realized the old woman was creating a trap, channeling the enemy into kill zones. Clara, left side. Nikolai's shout came just as a Corvinus warrior noticed her, his eyes lighting with predatory interest. Young, maybe 30 years, turned, with the cocky swagger of someone who'd never faced a real threat. He lunged, expecting easy prey. Clara didn't think, just reacted as Nikolai had taught her. She dropped low, letting his momentum carry him over her, and drove her blade upward as he passed. Not a killing blow, but the silver burned through his thigh, making him scream. It bought her seconds. Nikolai was there before the vampire recovered, finishing what Clara had started with brutal efficiency. Good, he said shortly. Stay close. The battle shifted as Thorn warriors rallied. Anara, seeing reinforcements, found second wind. Her blades became a silver whirlwind, driving back the Corvinus forces. But more were coming. Clara could hear them, feel the house shake with their approach. Irina now. Nikolai commanded. The old woman's hands moved in a sharp gesture, and her devices detonated in sequence. Not explosions exactly, but brilliant flashes of light that burned like miniature suns. Vampires screamed, blinded, disoriented. Even Nikolai flinched, shielding his eyes, but Clara's human eyes adjusted faster. In that moment of vampire blindness, she saw him, Dmitri, entering through the shattered front door, his handsome face split in rage. Volkov. His voice carried murder. Enough games. Face me properly, or I start killing your pets. He moved faster than thought, grabbing Lisette by the throat and lifting her effortlessly. The Thorn warrior thrashed, clawing at his arm, but Dmitri's grip was iron. What's it to be, Nikolai? Your pride or her life? The hall went still. Everyone frozen into blow. Warriors paused mid-strike, wounded vampires clutching injuries, all eyes on Nikolai. Clara felt his hesitation, saw the calculation in his eyes. Could he reach Dmitri before Lisette died? Was it worth the risk? What would this cost? Let her go, Nikolai said, his voice cold and controlled. Your quarrel is with me, not Thorn. My quarrel is with your continued existence. Dmitri's smile was vicious. You and your pathetic house, clinging to outdated laws and human sympathies. The world is changing, Volkov. Corvinus will remake it, with or without your cooperation, by breaking every law that keeps us safe. Nikolai's blade was steady, pointed at Dmitri's heart. By turning us into the monsters humans already fear, you'll destroy us all, or elevate us to our rightful place. Dmitri's grip tightened, and Lisette made a choking sound. Apex predators, not parasites hiding in shadows. Imagine it, vampires ruling openly, humans serving willingly or dying. No more sneaking, no more pretending to be civilized. Just pure, beautiful dominance, madness. Anara breathed. Evolution, Dmitri corrected. But I tire of philosophy. Nikolai, you have 3 seconds to decide. Duel me now. One-on-one. Winner takes all. Or I snap her neck and we slaughter everyone in this house. Clara saw Nikolai's shoulders tighten. Knew what he was thinking. He couldn't win this duel. Dmitri was older, stronger, trained specifically for combat, while Nikolai had spent centuries in diplomacy. This was suicide, but he would do it anyway. To save his mother, to honor his alliance with Thorn. Because that's who he was, someone who shouldered every burden, protected everyone, sacrificed himself over and over until nothing remained. Clara moved before conscious thought formed. She stepped forward, drawing every eye. Wait, Clara, no. Nikolai's voice was sharp with fear. I have a better offer, Clara said, her voice steadier than her hands. She looked directly at Dmitri, forcing herself not to flinch from those predator eyes. You said you want me, that I'm what you really came for. So take me. Let everyone else go, and I'll come willingly. No. Nikolai's shout echoed off ruined walls, but Dmitri was intrigued. He tilted his head, considering. The human offers herself. How noble. But what use are you to me, little mortal? You tell me. Clara forced confidence into her voice. You broke neutral ground for me. You called this attack over me. I must be worth something to Corvinus. So here's the deal, you get me. Everyone else lives, and this battle ends tonight. Irina's hands moved frantically. No, child. He'll kill you. Maybe, Clara acknowledged. But at least the rest of you survive. Dmitri laughed, delighted. Oh, I do like you. Such brave, stupid nobility. Very well, human. Come here, slowly. Any tricks and I kill the Thorn bitch first. Clara, please. Nikolai's voice broke on her name, but she couldn't look at him. If she looked, she'd lose her nerve. She walked forward, each step measured. Dmitri watched her approach with growing amusement, finally releasing Lisette, who collapsed, gasping. Clara stopped just out of his reach. Closer, he commanded. She took one more step. Close enough now to smell him, old blood and expensive cologne and something rotten underneath. His hand shot out, gripping her jaw with bruising force. Let's see what makes you so special that Volkov risks everything. He tilted her head, exposing her throat, and Clara felt his breath cold against her skin. Shall I taste you? See what he smells when you're near. Touch her and I'll end you. Nikolai's voice had gone beyond cold. It was the voice of something ancient and absolutely lethal. You'll try. Dimitri's fangs grazed Clara's throat, not breaking skin, but promising to. But here's the thing about human pets, Volkov. They're so very, very fragile. Clara closed her eyes, waiting for pain. But it didn't come. Instead, Dimitri stiffened, made a sound of confusion. Then his grip loosened. He stepped back, staring at his hand where he'd touched her. The skin was blistering, smoking slightly as if burned. What he started to say, Irina's hands moved in sharp triumph. The vials. You coated yourself. Clara had forgotten when she'd put on the vest in the catacombs. She'd also handled Irina's vials, gotten the blessed water on her hands, her neck, her face. Not much, but enough. Enough to make her toxic to vampire touch. Dimitri's face twisted in rage. Clever. But that just means I'll kill you from a distance. He drew a blade, silver and gleaming. Clara had nowhere to run, no time to dodge. She saw death coming and felt strangely calm. Then Nikolai was there, moving faster than physics should allow, putting himself between Clara and Dimitri's blade. The silver sank into his chest, through his ribs, and out his back. Time stopped. Nikolai looked down at the blade protruding from his chest, expression more surprise than pain. He touched the metal, fingers coming away dark with blood. Nikolai. Clara screamed. He turned to look at her, his eyes already losing focus. Run, he whispered. Then he fell. The hall erupted in chaos, thorn warriors attacking with renewed fury. Corvinus forces scattering, and Clara dropping to her knees beside Nikolai's fallen body. Her hands finding his face, his wound, trying uselessly to stop blood that wouldn't stop flowing. No, 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 she repeated like a prayer. You can't. You promised to teach me. You promised. His hand found hers, weak and trembling. Mother, he managed. Protect. Mother. I will, I swear. But you have to live. Clara's tears were falling on his face, mixing with his blood. Please, Nikolai, please don't leave. His eyes closed, and Clara felt something inside her break that had nothing to do with grief and everything to do with rage. Clara's scream was primal, torn from somewhere deeper than grief. She felt hands trying to pull her away from Nikolai's body. Thorn warriors, maybe, or Irina, but she shook them off with strength she didn't know she possessed. No, the word came out sharp, final. She looked up at the chaos around her. Corvinus forces retreating under Thorn's renewed assault. Dimitri, already fleeing through a shattered window, and Irina collapsed beside her son, hands moving in silent, desperate prayer. Clara's mind cleared with terrible focus. Nikolai had said vampires could heal from anything except heart destruction or decapitation. The blade had missed his heart. She could see it, lodged between ribs, close but not fatal. Not yet, but he was losing too much blood, fading to fast. Blood, Clara said aloud. He needs blood to heal. Anara appeared beside her, wounded but functional. The stores are destroyed. The battle, then use mine. Clara was already pulling at her vest, exposing her throat. Take it, as much as he needs. You're human. You'll die, I don't care. Clara grabbed Anara's arm with bloodied hands. Save him, please. I'll pay whatever cost. Irina's hands moved frantically. No, child. He would never forgive. He's dying. Clara's voice cracked. I can save him, and I will, even if he hates me for it. Even if I die doing it. He matters. You both matter. More than my safe, invisible life ever did. Anara studied her for a long moment, then nodded sharply. Lisette, get the emergency kit from the armory. We'll do a transfusion controlled, monitored. She's right. It's his only chance. The next minutes blurred together. Clara barely felt the needle in her arm, the tube connecting her to Nikolai's still form. She watched her blood flow through clear tubing, watched color begin returning to his gray face, watched wounds start knitting together with agonizing slowness. Lisette monitored her vitals with clinical efficiency, heart rate dropping. She's giving too much, keep going, Clara said through gritted teeth. The world was going fuzzy at the edges, cold creeping through her limbs. Is he healing? Yes, but then keep going. Irina's cool hand found Clara's, squeezing gently. The old woman's face was wet with tears, her expression caught between gratitude and terror. She signed with her free hand. Brave, foolish girl. My son chose well. Chose what? Clara's voice came out slurred. To care about you. To let you matter. Irina's smile was sad and knowing. Love is always a choice in our world. He chose you the moment he asked you to save me. Clara wanted to argue it wasn't love, couldn't be love. They'd only known each other days, but consciousness was slipping. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was Nikolai's eyes opening, storm gray and clear, finding her face with desperate intensity. She woke to candlelight and the smell of lavender. For a moment, Clara thought she was dead. This felt too peaceful for survival, too warm for the cold house. Then pain registered. Her arm ached where the needle had been, her head pounded, and her throat was desperately dry. Easy. Nikolai's voice, soft and close. Don't try to sit up yet. Clara's eyes adjusted. She was in a bedroom she'd never seen, elegant but comfortable, with heavy curtains blocking what must be daylight. Nikolai sat beside the bed, and the relief in his expression when their eyes met nearly broke her. You're alive, she managed. Thanks to you. His hand found hers, careful and reverent. You saved my life, Clara, at nearly the cost of your own. Worth it, she said simply. Something raw crossed his face. It shouldn't be. You barely know me. You should have run, should have saved yourself. Stop. Clara squeezed his hand. I made my choice. Just like you made yours when you jumped in front of that blade. That's different. I'm already dead, are you though? Clara pushed herself up despite his protest, needing to see his face clearly. You feel things, Nikolai. You grieve and hope and fear and care. That's not death. That's just living differently. He was quiet for a long moment, studying her with those ancient eyes. The others want to turn you. Anara, Lisette, even some of the younger Thorn warriors. They say you've proven yourself, that you deserve the choice. Clara's heart stuttered. And you? I think you deserve to choose for yourself. Without pressure, without urgency. His thumb traced circles on her palm. Turning is forever, Clara. You can't undo it. You'd lose the sun, lose the simple pleasures of being human. Gain immortality, but also endless hunger, endless loneliness, endless watching everyone you love die unless they turn too. But I'd gain time, Clara said softly. Time to matter, time to be seen, time with. She stopped, not quite ready to finish that thought. Time with us, Nikolai completed gently. With my mother, who already loves you like a daughter. With me, who, he paused, searching for words, who hasn't felt this alive in decades, who looks forward to sunset now, because it means I might hear your voice, see you smile, argue with you about vampire philosophy. Claire's breath caught. Nikolai, you don't have to decide tonight, or next week, or next month. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to something intimate and fierce. I will protect you as a human for as long as you wish to stay human. And if you ever choose transformation, I will guide you through it and stand beside you for whatever forever means. But this has to be your choice, Clara, not made from fear or obligation or gratitude. Made because you truly want this life. What do you want? Clara asked. Nikolai's smile was sad and honest. I want you to be happy. However that looks, wherever that leads. He paused. But selfishly, I want you to stay, to learn our world and challenge our ways, and make my mother laugh. To argue philosophy with me in the library, and throw blessed water at enemies, and be brave and reckless and alive in whatever form that takes. Clara felt tears sliding down her cheeks. I'm not brave. I'm terrified. Bravery is being terrified and choosing to act anyway. He wiped her tears with gentle fingers. You've been brave since the moment you signed Welcome to a Vampire's Mother. A soft knock interrupted them. Irina entered, carrying a tray with actual food: soup, bread, tea. Behind her, Anara and Lisette waited in the doorway. The battle? Clara asked. One, Anara said. Corvinus retreated at dawn. We lost 3 warriors. They lost 12. Dmitri escaped, but he's wounded and furious. This was a significant defeat for them. And now? Clara accepted the soup gratefully, warmth spreading through her. Now we rebuild. Strengthen alliances. Prepare for the next assault, because there will be one. Anara's expression was grim but determined. But we bought ourselves time. And we proved that House Volkov still has teeth. Irina's hands moved. Thanks to you. You saved my son. You gave us hope. I just gave blood, Clara protested. You gave us more than blood. Irina settled beside Nikolai, her expression radiant despite exhaustion. You gave us family again, purpose, a reason to fight for more than just survival. Clara looked between them, this small, battered family of vampires who'd somehow become hers in the span of days. then at the thorn warriors who'd bled beside them, at the candles burning despite the daylight beyond the curtains, at the choice stretching before her like an endless road. I need time, she said finally, to understand this world, to understand myself in it, to make a real choice, not one driven by crisis or romance or fear. Take all the time you need, Nikolai said. We're not going anywhere. But I'm not running either, Clara added firmly. I'm staying, learning, fighting if I have to. Maybe I'll choose humanity forever. Maybe I'll choose transformation eventually. But either way, she looked directly at Nikolai. I choose this. You. Your mother. This strange life. I choose to matter. His smile transformed his face, centuries of loneliness, cracking like ice in spring. Then welcome, Clara. Truly welcome. Irina signed. Welcome to House Volkov. May your presence bring us light. As the others left them privacy, as sunset painted the sky beyond the curtains, Clara felt something settle in her chest, not quite peace, but purpose. She'd stopped running, stopped hiding, stopped being invisible. The war with Corvinus would continue. Danger would return. Hard choices waited ahead. But for now, in this moment, Clara was exactly where she needed to be. Seen, valued, alive. Nikolai's hand still held hers, cool and steady. What are you thinking? Clara smiled. That I spent 3 years being nobody. Maybe it's time to find out who I am when I choose to be somebody. I look forward to discovering that with you. His expression turned serious. Whatever you choose, however long it takes, I'll be here. Promise? For as long as forever means. Outside, the sun set and the night rose. In the catacombs, thorn warriors stood watch. In the library, battle plans waited. In the gardens, graves needed digging. But in this room, for this moment, there was only warmth and choice, and the beginning of something that might, given time, become love. Clara closed her eyes and let herself rest. Nikolai's presence a cool anchor, Irina's blessing a whispered promise. The future stretched uncertain and dangerous before her, but for the first time in years, Clara wasn't afraid to meet it. The end. Epilogue. 3 months later, Clara practiced signing in the mirror. Her movements more fluid now. After months of daily lessons with Irina, the old vampire had taken her education seriously, not just sign language but vampire history, house politics, the intricate web of alliances that kept their world functioning. You're getting better, Nikolai said from the doorway, watching with that small smile she'd grown to treasure. Mother says you're nearly fluent now. Nearly isn't fluent. Clara turned to face him, noting how comfortable she'd become with his presence. His inhuman beauty no longer intimidating, but simply familiar. How did the meeting with House Montague go? They're joining the coalition. That's 5 houses now against Corvinus's 3. His expression was cautiously hopeful. We might actually survive this. We will survive this. Clara moved to him, taking his cool hands in her warm ones. And when it's over, when the dust settles and peace comes, ask me again. Ask you what? You know what? Her smile was knowing, gentle. I'm not ready yet, but I will be. And when I am, I want you to be the one who guides me through the transformation. Nikolai's breath caught unnecessary but habitual. Clara, not now, she said firmly. But someday, when I've lived enough as a human to know, I'm ready to leave it behind. When I've made peace with what I'm gaining and what I'm losing. When I choose it not because I have to, but because I want to. She squeezed his hands. When I want forever with you. His kiss was gentle, reverent, tasting of night and possibility. Outside, stars wheeled overhead. In the library, Irina planned tomorrow's lessons. In the world beyond, war simmered. But in this moment, Clara was exactly where she belonged, choosing her own path, writing her own story, becoming who she was meant to be, one heartbeat at a time.